Okay, welcome to episode 9 of the Jodas Hour. Today I have Coach King join me, as well as Mr. O'Brien. He is back for, I believe, the third episode now. No, this is 4, yeah. This is number 4. Episode 9. This was episode 9, so 4. That's almost half of them now.
Yeah, that's true. I'm excited to be back.
Nice, yeah. That's pretty great, Mr. O'Brien. Today we'll be discussing our March Madness picks, going over our brackets a little bit, deciding who we think is going to be the first ones out, maybe a little bit of Cinderella stories we can see in the future. Obviously, Coach King, coach of the basketball team. Need to get a little bit of expert personnel in here for this episode, which is exactly why we got Coach King. Coach King, you want to start off first with how you basically are feeling about this and the whole March Madness as a whole right now?
I'm really excited. Watching the selection show Sunday night, some of the commentators like Clark Kellogg, Seth Davis talked about how, yes, we had March Madness last year, but for the most part, the fans were limited. So we have the tournament, but we also have the fans, full crowds, the energy, the excitement's going to be awesome.
No, exactly. It's finally getting back to normalcy. We have about 2 years off of that now. We're finally back for a real March Madness. First time in a long time. Going to go grab my papers right under here right now.
Yeah.
Go for it.
Production
Absolutely.
timetable there.
Yeah, we're all good now? Okay. So first off, I think that we should start talking about the initial first 4, which are going to be the 4 teams, of course, fighting for the last couple spots in the bracket. It's about 8 teams fighting, 4 different games for the 4 last spots is what it is. First game, obviously, is Wright State versus Bryant.
Local team.
Yeah, no, 100%. I've been looking at this one really intensely lately because Bryant has won the last 7 straight before this, and they are led by Peter Kiss, who is averaging more than 25 points a game right now, and also by Charles Pride, 17.9 points per game on his side. Kiss had a scoring performance of 34 points on 13 of 23 shooting, and 4 of 5 from 3, 80% from 3, which is just an amazing game. And then Wright has a home game, basically, because it's in Dayton, Ohio, which is right next to where Wright College is.
Yeah, have all his family and friends there.
Yeah, exactly. I don't think that's going to help him too much in the end, though. Bryant is coming in just steaming hot. I think they're going to win this one, honestly. I think they're taking that last spot for them.
You mentioned it. Bryant is a two-headed monster with Peter Kiss and Charles Pride. Peter Kiss, the leading scorer in the nation right now at the Division I level.
Dang. I mean, I will admit I am the person on this panel that doesn't have any idea of college hoops.
That's not true.
That's why I rely on my 207 brethren here for any information on my bracket as well. But as I'm looking at this, I know about Peter Kiss and what he's done and how energetic, I guess you'd call him in the dance. I'm excited because there's a couple local teams, right? Where we got UConn. We got Yale, we got some Northeast folk, obviously the Rhode Island teams. So who's going to go the furthest? What do you think, Coach?
Ooh.
I'm going to hot out of the gate.
I think the easy choice and the safe choice is obviously Providence.
Yeah.
PC a 4 seed this year. Tough first round matchup with South Dakota State. They averaged close to 87 points per game. They might have the best player on the floor. So that's going to be a tough one. But to Coach O'Brien's point, they're playing that game up in Buffalo. So while it's not super close to Providence, it's in that Northeast region, and hopefully some PC fans will come out and support.
No, for sure. A lot of people from the fan side of PC are extremely hyped to see them in this tournament. Obviously, they participate in March Madness most years. But the fact that they're coming in as such a good team this year, they're one of the top-ranked teams in their side. Believe that they are the higher-ranked team in their matchup against North Dakota State. Believe, going to check exactly what their seeding, yeah, they're number 4. They're 4. I remembered it was high. I didn't want to say 4 before checking, but yeah, they're number 4 in the East. That's just or Midwest technically. Right. Obviously, get confused with the seeding as it's not really by where they are in the region.
Yeah, it's tricky, right?
Yeah, it's funky. So the way they do it is the regional finals are located in the region where it is. So for example, in the Midwest where PC is, if they were to make it to like the Elite 8, that regional final would be somewhere in like Chicago, like somewhere in that specific region.
I never knew that's what that meant. I thought they sectioned it off, like where the teams in the East would play in the East, teams in the West would play in the West. That's obviously not how they did it.
You would think they would do that, and actually back in the day they did when travel wasn't quite as easy as it is today. But yeah, nowadays they'll play those first couple rounds throughout the country.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I was wondering why UCLA and USC were in completely separate ones when they're in the same town, basically. That makes so much more sense.
It would be kind of cool to see those guys play
What
in
do
the
you
first
think
round.
of the bracket picking process anyways? I know there was a lot of controversy this year. Tennessee jumped or was lower than a couple other ones, right, that they beat or whatever it was. So what do you think of the process?
Yeah, it kind of reveals the committee's perspective as far as that the conference tournaments to them is really nothing more than just a regular conference game. Like Tennessee, to Coach O'Brien's point, won the SEC, beat Kentucky in the semifinal, Yet Kentucky is a 2 seed and Tennessee is the 3. Now, they both had great seasons, but it definitely reveals that the selection committee, they look at the totality of the season. At the conference tournament, doesn't really mean a whole lot more than any other game.
Yeah, people would think that would be the main deciding factor because that's obviously what gets the teams that are on the bubble into it. But if you're already in the tournament, you're not really getting affected by that. You're still going to be in the tournament. So then moving on with the first 4, obviously, we were just talking about Wright State versus Bryant. Who do you think is going to win between Notre Dame and Rutgers? Because this is one that shocked me a lot. Notre Dame as a guard, obviously Blake Wesley, who's leading the team with 14.6 points, while Rutgers' leading scorer is a forward named Ron Harper Jr., who's leading with 15.6 for them. But then Notre Dame has a 2-8 record versus Quadrant 1 teams, which shocked me. Well, compared to them, Rutgers has a 6-6 record. They have a .5 record against them compared to a 2-8 record. That's 20% win percentage basically for them compared to a 50% win percentage.
Rutgers started the year off very slow, but they had some amazing wins against some of the top teams in their conference, the Big Ten. They beat Michigan State. They beat Illinois. They beat Wisconsin. They had some really, really strong wins. And it's funny you mentioned Ron Harper Jr. His father, Ron Harper, played with Michael Jordan during the last three-peat there in the mid and late 90s. Right. So, yeah, kind of a cool story. Cool to see a familiar name.
I didn't make that connection. He was probably in The Last Dance then for a lot of that documentary because that was the last championship, during the last 3 years.
He's a big-time shooter, right?
Right, great defensive player, too.
Did I see Scottie Pippen's son, too? Is he in the tournament or was he in the conference? I thought he was playing on one of the teams.
I know Shaq's son's playing on LSU right now. So Sharif O'Neal's playing on LSU. I think that Scottie Pippen, he does have a kid, I think, in there. I'm not fully sure his name.
I saw a highlight the other day.
Yeah, I'm not super familiar.
Yeah. I got Rutgers and whoever wins that beating Bama.
Interesting.
Really?
I don't know. What do you guys think?
You know what shocked me, Mr. O'Brien? My bracket says the exact same thing. I also put Rutgers over Bama. I'm not that big of a believer in Bama for some reason. I'm going to check my notes and see why exactly that was.
While you're checking that, my question is, Coach King, so like when I'm looking, I don't follow the game at all, right? I'm one of those guys. I just pick it up during the tournament, maybe a little during the conference weekend. But if I'm looking at these numbers, is there a number matchup that is more likely to have an upset? So like, as an example, the 6-11, maybe it's just numbers, but I look at those like sort of teams that aren't the 16-1, but maybe a little bit closer in ranking that had that opportunity to be an upset. Maybe that's obvious, but what do you think?
It's a great question, and it's interesting because there have actually been more 5s that have upset, there are more 12 seeds that have upset 5s than 11s versus 6s. I think the big reason is that a lot of times those mid-major conferences, those conference champions, usually get put in the 12, 13, 14 bracket. Okay. So they just haven't had the chance yet to play against some really good teams because their league is a little bit smaller, et cetera. Yeah. So I think that's a big reason why, the 5-12 is more of an upset possible seeding compared to like the 7-10. Because usually the 7-10 is 2 teams from bigger leagues that have played against similar teams before, similar styles. So I always like the 5-12 is always a great upset game. 4-13 as well. Sorry, Friar fans, but that is also a strong possibility, unfortunately.
Yeah. Well, I was obviously thinking about like 7 versus 8 because they're so close, but 5 versus. You said it was 5 versus 11, obviously, right?
5-12, yep.
5-12. That's my bad. Yeah, you just said that.
Interesting way to think about it too. I like that.
Yeah, 5-12 would not really expect that, to be honest. 6 versus 11, maybe a little bit because it's getting a little bit closer. 5 versus 12, though, that makes actually a good amount of sense because that's obviously where it'd be a sleeper. You wouldn't expect it, but they can go on that run still.
Right. It's a lot of those teams that maybe in the eyes of the selection committee didn't play in a competitive schedule enough because they're in a smaller league, but they're actually really good. Yeah. And so I always keep an eye on the 5-12. If you want to pick upsets in your bracket, start with the 5-12 spot.
Good to know.
For sure.
I might have to redo my entire bracket after this show, Des. What do you think?
No, 100%. Just pick the 12 over the 5 every chance we get.
I don't know if we'll go that far, but.
No, so I was checking out the notes, and I found the reason I put Bama under Rutgers, they lost their last 3 games coming in this tournament. I feel like, momentum's a massive thing with this tournament as it's 1 game each time. It's not a 7-game series or anything. Whoever comes in that game hot wins it.
So, I mean, that's a good question, too, for Coach King, is like maybe what are the top 3 things you look for in a Final Four team, maybe? Is it seniors? Is it win streak? Is it you like the uniforms, cool color uniforms? What do you think? That's how I pick my bracket.
I think you named a couple of them. I definitely start with who's hot. And a team like UCLA, for example,
Yeah.
who even though they lost in the conference championship in the Pac-12 to Arizona, it was a really close game. Arizona, we'll get to them in a little bit. They're extremely talented. UCLA has great experience, right? They went to the Final Four last year. They were a half-court shot away in overtime from getting to the championship against Gonzaga. UCLA, with their experience, John Juzang is one of the best scorers in the country. Their head coach, Mick Cronin, has really resurrected that program. I think Tiger Campbell is one of the best guards in the country as well. He's a really impressive player. They got some good size with Cody Riley, who plays his role really well. I like UCLA a lot, and I have them going pretty far.
Yeah, I also have UCLA going pretty far. I had supported them last year during when they obviously lost to Gonzaga by 3 points. That was the most heartbreaking thing. I believe that's when Jalen Suggs hit the final shot, right?
Exactly.
I was watching that game. That was probably the first March Madness game I've watched in a couple of years, honestly, because I had been supporting UCLA. I thought they came back at the end, then Jalen Suggs just ended everything. It was just so sad in my living room.
Joe Dez, UCLA, that's your safety school.
Yeah, UCLA, we're really hoping there.
Go Bruins.
So hopefully the admission officers listen right now as I'm hyping them up a little bit.
Probably get this video to them. I
Yeah, I might have to send it.
Maybe
Yeah.
your assistant AD friend
I
there.
could maybe slip this video right over there.
Yeah, I might need to do that. I might need to ask a few favors from you, Mr. O'Brien.
Right, I owe you. All right. What else we got?
So obviously there's a couple top teams, but no top team really – well, not I wouldn't say no top team, but usually the last four aren't all top teams. There'll be like one or two. Usually isn't all of them. Which of the top 1 seeds, basically? There's 4 1 seeds. Obviously it's Gonzaga, Arizona. There's also Kansas and Baylor for the top 4. Who do you think from there is the most likely not to reach the Final Four?
It's a great question, Joe. I would probably start with Baylor. And they're the defending national champions. For the most part, they've returned a good core of their team. They're missing some of their top guards from last year's championship squad. Baylor can wear you down physically. They're just tough, and they did that to Gonzaga last year in the championship. But they're a little bit limited at times offensively. They're tough to evaluate, though, because they've had so many injuries, and we haven't seen them at full strength. But I would probably, with my pick, would be Baylor. I would keep an eye on that second-round matchup. If North Carolina potentially wins, North Carolina, even though they lost in the ACC tournament, they had a big win against Duke in Coach K's last home game a couple weeks ago. They have a 4-headed monster between Make It, who is the player of the year in the conference, R.J. Davis, Caleb Love, and Manick, who's an Oklahoma transfer, who can really stretch the floor and shoot the ball as a big guy. North Carolina, despite their lack of depth, I think is a very good chance to upset Baylor in that second round.
No, 100%. I think you need to really watch out for that type of stuff because they obviously lost Davion Mitchell, who was a massive part of their defense. He was a first-round pick for the Sacramento Kings. That's the first-round talent you're losing. You can't really expect to repeat the exact same way he did the year before without him.
That might be a pick I have to switch because I had Baylor beating North Carolina, but I flipped that because I originally had North Carolina. I was coming off the UNC beat Duke, and maybe they have a little momentum going there. I don't know. I'm going to lose a lot of sleep tonight, Coach King.
I mean, Baylor, like I said, while I think North Carolina has a good chance to beat Baylor, I also worry though about like I mentioned, their lack of depth. Right, North Carolina basically plays 5 guys, maybe 6, and Baylor, as I said, they may not be as offensively talented as they were last year, but they can wear you down physically.
All right, I flip back.
Well, just offer both sides of the coin.
Yeah, Coach King, you mentioned that 4-head monster they have leading their team. I was looking at that, and I had written it down because I thought it was so interesting. 4 players have at least 13.3 points per game, and a couple of those players were Armando Bassat, as you mentioned, obviously, 16.5 points per game. And then 12.5 rebounds per game. He almost has 13. That's like Dwight Howard in the NBA. That's not a little number, really. And then he also averages 1.7 block per game. He's a junior center, 6'10". He's going to be amazing in this tournament. He's going to be showcasing all his skills.
Player of the year in the conference this year, and there's some really good players in the ACC. You think about all the top players at Duke, like Paulo Banchero and some of these other guys. Like I said, player of the year in the conference, you're right. He's going to have a great tournament.
No, 100%. I didn't even realize he was player of the year. That's pretty cool to see, actually. Then they obviously have their first-round matchup with Marquette. You obviously are taking them over them if you think they're going to beat Baylor as well.
I do, and I got to watch Marquette a little bit this year, being in the Big East and following PC. They have a nice team. They have a familiar face in Tyler Kolek, who's their point guard. He's a Cumberland kid. So he's a local guy, so obviously want to support them.
Yeah,
but
that's great.
I just think athletically, particularly down low, as you mentioned, North Carolina's size and athleticism, I think, will overwhelm Marquette a little bit. And I think their guards, R.J. Davis and Caleb Love, will be able to kind of get where they want offensively, and I think Marquette will just come up a little short.
No, I think so too. One thing that I had marked down for this game, Marquette, as I mentioned, the other team, North Carolina, has 4 players with over 13.3 points. Marquette only has 2, and one of those players only has 13.5 points, so almost only 1. It's going to be pretty obvious which side has more offensive power. It's going to just come down to defense, I think, in the end. But I think North Carolina's going to step out of this one.
I think so too.
Is that the end of the bracket that probably has the least talent? Because I've heard people describe this side of the bracket is the prospects. Yeah. This is the seniors who are grinding and everything. I don't know. What do you think? What is the least amount of talent? What is the most amount of talent? Region-wise. And maybe that's a loaded question.
Yeah, I agree. There's definitely some themes between the different the 4 quadrants.
Yep.
I would, in terms of least talent, to be honest with you, I would look at that bottom right, that Midwest.
Okay.
Kansas.
They top heavy.
They do some good things. Offensively, I think Bill Self runs a really good style. His high-low motion. OJ Abaji was the player of the year in the Big 12. Can really light it up offensively. McCormick, their big man down low, is really physical and tough. But I just think Kansas has some flaws. And looking at some of those other teams, Auburn, they've lost 3 out of the last 4. They've really struggled outside of their home court in this last month of the season. I like Wisconsin. Coach Greg Gard does a great job. But despite having the Big Ten Player of the Year in Johnny Davis, I think Wisconsin's a little bit limited. As far as least talent, I know that was a big soliloquy here. I would probably say the Midwest quadrant in the bottom right.
Yeah, I think Midwest is fair for sure. One team, obviously, on the flip side of that coin, though, is Gonzaga. They have 4 different players who could be getting drafted. Chet Holmgren is going to go top 3 almost for sure. He's like 7 feet tall.
Joe Des?
It's going to be tough. I think they can get pretty far. One team that's going to challenge them, though. One thing I really got to say.
Don't say Duke.
Don't
say Duke.
The one thing, I don't know if you can count out Duke because it's Coach K's last year. I don't know how far they'll be able to go. It really just matters how much their players are playing for them. But one team that's shocking, too, if Duke loses to Davidson in the second round, like in the second round, obviously right before the Sweet 16.
Yep.
I was trying to think if it was called something else. It's just called second round. But I think that whoever wins that game has a really good chance at actually challenging the main Gonzaga guy. I think that Gonzaga obviously has a lot of star power. Just matters if they can pull that together. Drew Timmy's playing his last year before going to the NBA. He's a senior right now. He's been in this tournament. He went to the championship last year, lost it. He's going to have a fire inside of him. He's going to want to win this real bad.
So you like Gonzaga going to the Elite 8?
I do like Gonzaga going to the Elite 8. I honestly had Memphis over Boise State because they're coached by Penny Hardaway. I think that his little bit of experience in the playoffs, all that type of stuff. Yeah, it's going to be cool to see. They're a really athletic team as well. I think Gonzaga's going to outskill them in the end, though. I think they're going to push in the Sweet 16 by beating Memphis. Then after that, I had Connecticut versus Arkansas in the second round. And I honestly think that's going to be a really close game because 5 versus 4. But there's a good chance that I'd probably say Arkansas is going to step out on top of that one.
It's definitely a contrast of styles. UConn and a lot of the Big East this year really grind it out defensively, and they make it really tough to score. Arkansas has a couple guards in particular who are extremely good athletes who can light it up. I also like Connecticut moving on just because I think in the NCAA tournament you see teams that are comfortable playing slow do a little bit better, and I think some of that is, especially in the later rounds, I mean, you're playing these basketball games in a football stadium, whether it's the Superdome in New Orleans, in Houston, also Detroit, Indianapolis. You're putting basically a basketball court in the middle of a football field where the depth perception is terrible. Yeah. And teams understand that. They pack it in, they force you to hit outside shots, and a lot of times it's a struggle.
No, 100%. I think no matter what, this whole game is going to be a defensive struggle. I was looking at Arkansas's stats. Their defense is just so tight. They won 15 of their last 18 games, and they held 12 of the opponents under 40% field goal percentage. Not three-point percentage, field goal percentage. They were in the 30s for field goal percentage for the majority of them. That's just insane to see. And then the same number, 12 teams, they out-rebound every single time. That's just great to see.
So my question is, assuming all the number ones win their first game, who has the toughest second round of all the number ones?
I'm going to go back to Baylor. Right,
Yeah.
like I said, North Carolina. Their 4 players can compete with anybody.
Okay.
And I would definitely go back to Baylor. Just going back to the West bracket too. While we're talking defense, don't sleep on Texas Tech.
Texas Tech.
They are going to get after it defensively. They are going to deny passing lanes hard. They are not going to allow you to reverse the basketball on the perimeter. They're going to keep it to a side. They're going to force you to drive into their help. They have a new first-year head coach, Chris Beard, their former coach, who led them to the Final Four in 2019. He's now the head coach at the University of Texas, but they still play the same style, the same hard-nosed basketball. Texas Tech, I'd like them to beat Duke in this one.
Really? Yeah. Wow, that is actually a bold prediction. I could see it, though, because obviously it was Coach. I keep saying Coach K. He's like him retiring.
Here's the real Coach K.
Yeah, exactly. This is the real Coach K for sure. But I keep saying him retiring is going to bring up his players. It was his last home game, and they still lost to North Carolina. So I obviously don't know if that's really going to carry them because it just matters in the end. Like, they might be preparing for the NBA. They have Paulo Banchero, who is going to be the #1 pick. He's a 6'10" player. He's just so good. He has this one weird problem, though. He loses 7 pounds just from sweating so much every single game. He had to get, like, IVs and stuff on the sideline. It was insane.
Yeah, they're an extremely talented team, Duke. Don't get me wrong. They have the chance to win this whole thing. But I agree. Especially with the young team, Paulo Banchero, you mentioned, a freshman center, and Mark Williams. They're young, and you wonder how they will handle that added pressure. We saw it against North Carolina when it was Coach K's last game.
Yep.
At Cameron Indoor, and they came up short in the second half. I do, because they're so young, they're one of the youngest teams in this tournament. I do wonder how they're going to handle that.
No,
that's an interesting Elite Eight right there. Texas Tech taking Duke. I have Texas Tech versus Duke, but Duke winning to go to the Elite Eight.
Dang, yeah. One thing I keep thinking, Davidson has been a team that has shocked me. They have not really been this good since they had Steph Curry on their team. But I've got a couple stats I have to tell you guys because they blew my mind when I saw them. Yeah. So Davidson, they're playing Michigan State first round. Michigan State obviously is coached by one of the great coaches, Tom Izzo, 25 straight seasons, 20 consecutive of them being in the NCAA tournament. And then Michigan State started 14-2, finished 8-10. I think that is obviously showing them slowing down. I think that Davidson's going to win that game purely because of that. But they also have 4 players, Davidson has 4 players, who average at least 11.8 points per game. And they average 75.6 points per game. But a couple of those players were Foster Loyer, who was 16.6 points per game, then 3.2 rebounds, 3.3 assists. He's a junior guard. Obviously, following him was Hyunjung Lee, 16.3 points. These are all really close point percentages. Then their final one was Luka Bergerovic. I cannot even really say that one. Yeah, Bergerovic.
Work on that one for the next episode.
Really wrote that down. And I was thinking, I'm just going to find that on the spot. We'll be fine later. Could not figure that out on the spot at all.
We'll edit that in post.
Yeah. We'll put the Google Translate voice over it. But yeah, he had 14.3 points per game. That's just insane to see. They have not been in a March Madness game since 2015 either. I think that they're going to want to win this one for their school because they don't know when they're coming back here. They might have a couple years off again. I think they're just going to put everything in this game. It's a big thing.
Davidson plays a fun style. They're going to play a lot of 5-out motion. All 5 guys are going to be able to shoot the 3, so they're going to create a lot of space, a lot of driving lanes. They play a fun game. And I know you made a great point about Michigan State's record the last second half of the season here. But there's a reason they've been to 24 straight NCAA tournaments, like you mentioned.
Yeah.
And going back to styles and what works in the tournament, Tom Izzo's Spartans, they're going to rebound the ball. They're going to be extremely physical. And they're going to give Davidson their best shot. While I hear you with Davidson, they had a tough loss in their conference championship against Richmond, which allowed them Richmond to sneak into the tournament. Yeah. I actually like Michigan State in that game. I just think they're going to be able to wear Davidson down. And Tom Izzo, those guys are just tough. Mentally, physically, they're tough.
No, 100%. You cannot count Michigan State out at all. I'm rooting for Davidson because they haven't been in a single game since 2015. I kind of want them to get over that hump and win that. I also rooted for the Cincinnati Bengals. We saw that end up. That could obviously be a flip of the coin. Could end up just with the Michigan State Spartans obviously still going on. They went on an insane run a couple of years ago. I remember the whole family jumped on the bandwagon because they were doing so good.
Michigan State?
We ended up coming in with a long-sleeve Michigan State shirt, and every single kid realized it was full bandwagon because I'd never watched any single game of college hoops.
You got to love it, right?
Yeah,
March, as they say.
Yeah, exactly. No one knows if you're bandwagon or if you follow them for life, so we're good.
A big dance, baby. That's all it is.
Joe Des, do you have your bracket filled out, or are you still waiting?
So my first round, I have gotten filled out. And the way I was going to do the Midwest region, I was going to do on this on this show, I'm just going to fill out the mascots real quick. I was going to do that bottom portrait as which mascot would win a fight.
Do you need some help?
Yeah, sure. That'd actually be pretty good. So if you wanted to get just the bottom 4 teams, their mascots, I can get the top 4, then coach. Actually, I can just get the middle 8.
Yeah, if you want to go, or we can, if maybe they're ones you know off the top of your head, or we know off the top of our head.
Yeah, do you know This was the only one I wasn't really able to find easily. Do you know the Texas? I think it's Texas A&M Community College is what it is. I'm not sure if it fully means community college.
Oh, wait, Corpus Christi.
That's what
Texas A&M at Corpus Christi. Yeah.
Oh, this whole time I kept thinking, wow, that's pretty cool. They got a community college.
Yeah, community college. Yeah.
I'm gonna root for them a little bit. That makes so much more sense.
Bunker Hill next year, Bunker Hill Community College.
Yeah.
The local team. I love that. That's fun. What do we got out of the that matchup?
That would be the Jayhawks of Kansas versus. Do you know who their mascot is by any chance?
God,
I do not. I do not off the top of my head. Sorry.
I might have to go get the production team on that one.
Yeah, no, we'll be filling that in later. But I can read my first round from this. So the entire West and East region, I actually did a lot of research on these ones. So I think Gonzaga will overtake Georgia State in the first round. Also think Memphis will overtake Boise State. Then I had Gonzaga going past Memphis there as well, moving on to Sweet 16. And then Connecticut I had over North Mexico State, followed by Arkansas over Vermont. And then ended up having Rutgers beating Alabama, as I said before.
Same bracket so far.
Yeah. Then Texas Tech over Montana State. Dang, Davidson over Michigan State. Yeah, that was my one upset I threw in. Then I had Duke over CSU Fullerton.
We're going to be riding high the same, I think.
Then I had Baylor over Norfolk State, North Carolina over Marquette, St. Mary's over Indiana, UCLA over Akron. But the Akron one worries me a little bit because Akron's been heating up before this one. They've won a couple games before this.
Yep.
And then Texas, I ended up losing to Virginia Tech. Virginia Tech moving on. That was a big upset in my mind.
Tech has some momentum. What did you say, Coach K?
Winning the ACC, yeah, absolutely. Came out of nowhere. I think if they don't win the ACC, I don't think they're in this tournament.
Oh,
and that's and this is going back to those seedings, right? The selection committee would never put like a Power 5 conference school in like the 15 or 16 slot. They just don't do that. So when you see Virginia Tech at like an 11 or a Power Conference team that at like an 11, you know that they were one of the last four in.
Okay.
Because they would hardly ever would they put a major Power 5 school in that like 13 or 14 slot.
Yeah, dang, I had not actually realized that. So they ended up winning their conference, you said?
Yep, they came out of nowhere. They had wins over Duke, North Carolina.
So are they more favorable in the big tournament in that case? Or what do you think? Or is it team to team?
You know, I think, like we talked about momentum, they certainly have it. Texas, though, going back to new first-year head coach Chris Beard, I mean, they just play a physical style of basketball. And as good as Duke and North Carolina are, I'm not sure how Virginia Tech's personnel will be able to handle that type of defensive intensity. So I kind of like Texas in that matchup, although I'm not loving the pick. But if I'd probably go Texas.
No, Texas is a great team. They cannot be counted out at all. I just think that there's going to be a couple of those teams that end up flipping the script, end up having the lower seed beat the upper seed. And I think that that's going to be one of them with Virginia Tech taking that one. And then I ended up having Purdue beat Yale. Thought that one was a little bit obvious. And then Murray State versus San Francisco. I was having a little bit of trouble deciding between, but I ended up playing Murray State over San Francisco.
Yeah. Is that Ja Morant?
Yeah.
Exactly.
They're 30-2 this year. Their record is impeccable. They have the player of the year in their league. They've gone through their schedule extremely well. San Francisco, a WCC school, you know, they gave Gonzaga and St. Mary's some good games this year. But I like Murray State in that one too.
Now, does Murray State beat Kentucky?
I'm going to say probably not. Kentucky, this team, in contrast to some of Coach Cal's previous teams that had a lot of one-and-done freshmen, et cetera, this team has a lot more experience. Oscar Sheetway is the best rebounder in college basketball, and he is an absolute presence under the hoop. I like Kentucky going on to at least the Sweet 16. And as I look at my bracket, probably going even to the Elite Eight. Purdue doesn't have some momentum right now. They had a tough loss in their conference tournament. Coach Trebek?
I was just going to say, does Virginia Tech beat Purdue, or does Purdue win?
I think Purdue's talent will win, whether that's Texas or Virginia Tech, to be honest. Purdue has one of the best players in the country. I'm blanking on his first name, but his last name is Ivey.
Jaden Ivey.
Extremely athletic guard. He's going to be a lottery pick in this year's draft. He's an incredible player, and I think that type of talent will put them over the top.
No, exactly. I actually wrote down his stats. He has 17 points per game, and that's 46% from field. He's so good. He's fun to watch, yeah.
He's extremely athletic.
Then in that matchup versus Yale, I was comparing their leading scorers, and while Yale actually has the higher leading scorer with 19.2 points, which is I believe it's Arzara Susan, and then he only shot 42% from field is the thing, though. So I'd probably rather have 2 less points with 4% better than the other way around, being honest.
Absolutely. Efficiency from the offensive end is really important in the tournament. And, yeah, if you can't create good high percentage shots for yourself, you're going to really struggle in this tournament.
No, exactly.
This is March.
It's here, boys. It's here.
Yeah. Then, so for the southern region of my bracket, I wanted to bring this up. I decided that I'd do that 1/2 fully serious that I mentioned to you guys. Then for the South, I ended up leaving up to a coin flip for both them. And then Midwest is the Mascot Fights. So we're going to see which way actually works best, if you can actually predict it using statistics or if you have to go as random chance. So we ended up having Arizona take over Bryant, which would be the obvious pick, obviously, but that ended up being decided by a coin. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Then we had TCU over Seton Hall, Houston over UAB. Then this was a big one that shocked me because of the coin flip. Couldn't change it at all. They had Chattanooga beating Illinois in that first round. Very much doubt that, but
I think that's where you get some spare change.
Yeah.
Change that coin.
I don't know, boys. Chattanooga is actually an extremely talented team.
Yeah?
Illinois, Kofi Cockburn is one of the most impressive players in college basketball. He's an extremely athletic big who's very skilled, very smooth. But that's actually not a bad pick there, Joe. I'm not promising it. No guarantees, obviously. It's March. But if there was going to be one upset this year in the tournament, major upset, that one would be on the top of my list.
Yeah, no, they actually have a good chance, Mr. King. I'm thinking about that now. I might end. Yeah, I might end up getting some luck from having the coin flip decide that. We're all good now. We are back from the break. Just needed to reset a couple mics. Almost left Coach King in the dust where he couldn't be speaking, but we were all set now. We were going to go back to this. Coach King, to start off this second segment, obviously, now we had that cut. Who do you think has the biggest chance of being a Cinderella story this year?
We were just talking about Chattanooga, Joe. I think they have a great chance. Unfortunately, it pains me to say this, boys.
Let's hear it.
But South Dakota State PC.
Really?
Love my Friars. I love Coach Cooley. I think he's done a great job really bringing this program back to where it needs to be. Yeah. PC's got a tremendous team with Nate Watson, Noah Horkler, Al Durham, Jared Bynum. But South Dakota State, like I said, they average close to 90 points a game. It's going to be a contrast of styles. PC's going to want to slow the game down, grind it out. But South Dakota State, don't sleep on them. I think that's a potential upset.
Yeah, no, there's a very good chance for that one. I did not expect you to actually pick PC. Dang. Yeah, I know. I can't imagine. I can see the pain in your eyes right there, Mr. King. Dang.
I struggled with how far does PC go if they even win that first game.
Yeah.
Because of all the hype we are seeing locally, too. I wonder also, as you're picking your bracket, does the local hype take over for you when you're trying to pick local teams or against local teams? What do you think, Coach?
Absolutely. I know for my bracket, I definitely go hard overhead, which is why I'm going to have PC going to the Sweet 16. If I was a betting man, I will say, though, if PC is able to win their first-round matchup with South Dakota State, I like them against Iowa or Richmond. Iowa came out kind of, to a degree, out of nowhere to win the Big Ten. They got a talented team with Keegan Murray. The coach's son, the McCaffrey boys, are pretty good, too. But I do like PC in that matchup, to be honest with you, over Iowa. So if PC can win that first-round game, Joe, I think there's a good chance they're dancing in the Sweet 16.
No, I actually kind of agree with that, Mr. King. I was thinking that first game is going to be a little bit hard to get through because obviously that is really good competition. But if they do that and they start building momentum, getting a little bit of fire under them, I think they can go really far in this tournament because they are a good team. They're not really weak at all.
Love that.
Agreed. And I think the Big Ten also is a little bit overrated. They got 9 teams in the tournament, most out of any league. But there's certainly no elite schools from that conference. And I also think the league is just a tad bit overrated this year.
No, that's fair completely. So, I'm actually realizing I didn't really finish the coin flip section, so I'm just going to finish that up real quick. Ended up also having Houston beating UAB, Chattanooga over Illinois, I already mentioned those, Colorado State over Michigan. Then ended up having Longwood beating Tennessee, which hurt me because I want Tennessee to go far in this tournament, but I couldn't deny the coin at that point. I think Tennessee, in all reality, is going to win that one, but I had to follow the
How long have you been doing this coin flip thing? Because this might be the last year, because that's a crazy upsets.
This was the first year, so we're separating the bracket a little bit, seeing what strategy works best, seeing if we can actually predict the regular way like you're supposed to, or if we just have to leave it to random chance.
Bad approach.
I like your balance, though. You got a couple of the quadrants where you've done your research, you've done your homework, then you leave a little bit up to fate. Yeah. And then I just love the mascot competition, which I think is awesome, too.
We've been slowly building up the mascots right over here. We're close to getting all of them done. Within a couple minutes, I'll have them done. We'll be able to do that section. It'll be great for sure. But I also wanted to ask, we obviously talked about the number 1 seeds. There's no chance of a 16 seed beating the number 1 seed this year, right? Because that's happened once in NCAA history. That's not repeating this year, right? Because it's Gonzaga versus Georgia State. Obviously, I feel like Gonzaga's going to win that one. Might be having this bite me if Georgia State ends up winning that, though. I realize now I might have a sound bite come out. And then Arizona over Bryant was the other one. Then there is also Kansas over TAMC. And then the final one would be Baylor over Norfolk State. Do you think any of them could actually win that?
I don't. It's only happened once, Joe, in 2018 in Virginia versus University of Maryland at Baltimore County. It was the perfect storm. Virginia's best player, DeAndre Hunter, was out with an injury. And
they won it the next year, didn't they?
Correct, and they came back the very next year and won the whole thing. So it was kind of the perfect storm. I agree with you. As much as I would love to see a local school like Bryant, try to compete with like an Arizona. Arizona's size and athleticism. First-year head coach Tommy Lloyd has done a great job with that group. He was a former assistant to Mark Few at Gonzaga. Benedict Mathurin is one of the most fun and electric players in college basketball.
Arizona?
Yeah, he's a young Russell Westbrook. He
Really?
plays above the rim. He's 6'5". He can shoot it. He's super quick, super athletic. Player of the year in the Pac-12. Watch Arizona; they're a lot of fun.
No, that's going to be great to see. If he's going to compare to Russell Westbrook in college, that'd be awesome. Russell was just amazing in college. He was so good. And he can shoot, you said, right? Like, you can actually pull
Yeah,
up
he's
and
probably a better shooter than Russ at this point in his career.
This stat blew my mind. I actually have to bring it up right now. This is about college hoops. Russell Westbrook, since the All-Star break, 9% from three.
Ooh.
That's insane, right? Like, it does not even seem like it's real. 9%. Just so
Not in
low.
today's NBA, right?
Nah, that you kind of need to at least shoot 30, or even if you're a center, shooting 25 is fine. But 9%, that can't really be doing that.
Got to get it done.
I think even with our limited knowledge of hoops, I think we would all agree that the Westbrook-LeBron matchup was probably not going to go super well.
Not going to work.
Yeah, and I feel for Russell. He's a competitor. He plays hard. I admire him for that. But it's been a tough year for him. I feel bad. He's an LA kid. Great player, but just not a great matchup for him.
Yeah, that's what made me sad. 'Cause when I saw it, I didn't think it'd work out too well, but I had hope in the back of my mind. 'Cause I like Russ. I thought that he was really good in the Wizards last year. It was so fun to watch because he'd just be putting up like 20, 20, 20 for no reason all the time. Like 20 rebounds, 20 assists, 20 points. Just be awesome to see.
He's an incredible player.
Yeah, no, 100%. No matter, even if like you see a decline over the next couple of years, it's still awesome to see him play. He's been so fun to watch. And then, are there any specific players throughout this bracket that you think are going to really decide how this whole thing goes?
I do. Looking at Gonzaga, I think Drew Timme is an incredible, valuable piece for them. I think you saw it in
He's the big guy with the mustache?
Yes.
Yeah, exactly.
For example, in their last regular season game with St. Mary's, they lost, and a big reason was Drew Timme had probably the worst performance of his career. If Gonzaga's going to want to win the national championship, Drew Timme has to play well.
Yeah, 100%. Because I remember when they made it to that championship game, he had an insane NCAA tournament. I remember him just going off every game of March Madness. He was a fan favorite.
He did, absolutely. And going back to last year, too, Joe, about specific players, Johnny Juzang, I think I mentioned him from UCLA. He can light it up, and he was a great scorer last year in the tournament. I think UCLA has the potential to go to the Final Four. And if that's going to happen, though, Johnny Juzang has to be lights out like he was last year.
No, 100%. Needs to come every night just fully ready to play. Cannot take a single night off. I think UCLA is going to be the team to watch for sure, too. They're going to be so fun to watch. Last year during the tournament, they were a first four team, right? Like, they didn't even get placed in the bracket immediately. They had to fight through the first four.
It's a great point. I'd forgotten that until you said it. Absolutely.
First four to Final Four?
Yeah.
Amazing.
I know.
I have them in my Final Four.
Yeah, I think they're going to make the Final Four, too. They were so fun to watch last year. When that shot went in, I was heartbroken. Jalen Suggs stood up on a table like this with his arms out. Never been more heartbroken. I was just sitting there watching him celebrate as I just saw everything crashing down.
This is March.
Yeah, exactly. This is March. That's true. I was just, every time I think about March Madness, I think, the Kemba Walker shot when he was on UConn where he does a step back when he first got
against Pittsburgh.
East, right? Was that Big East?
Against Pitt in the Big East final.
Yeah, exactly. That's when everyone finally gave him that nickname, Cardiac Kemba, because it was the last second of the game. He finally scored it. It was just so nice.
And that UConn team, didn't have a great year overall. They had to play in the opening round of the Big East tournament. Back then, the Big East had like 16 teams. So they won 5 games in 5 days to win the Big East tournament. And then won 7 games in the NCAA tournament, beating Butler and Coach Brad Stevens in the final. So they won 12 in a row to end the year. Kemba Walker, one of the most fun players to watch in college basketball the last 20 years.
No, 100%. Did you say Brad Stevens coached the team that he beat?
He did. He was the head coach at Butler.
That's funny. I didn't realize he coached Butler, and they ended up coaching Kemba, who beat him in that tournament. They had to have discussions about that a couple times.
I bet they did.
Did they beat him? I thought because they were in the Final Four and then the championship, right? Back-to-back years.
Yeah, they were the finalists. They lost to Duke in 2010 when Gordon Hayward had that three-quarter shot. That's so close. And then the next year they made it back to the national championship. Okay. But UConn with Jeremy Lamb, Kemba Walker, of course, a young Shabazz Napier.
That's right.
Was able to.
Shabazz still in the league?
I don't think so. I think he's playing overseas.
Oh, interesting.
So next question, Mr. King, I gotta ask you this: what team do you think is going to be most affected by the lost players last year who moved on to the NBA or just moved on their lives, basically?
It's a great question, Joe. Give me a second here.
Yeah, no problem. Because obviously Gonzaga had like Corey Kispert get drafted. They kept most of their core, though, and they had Chet Holmgren as well. They did lose Jalen Suggs, obviously, though, too, as well, who was their main point guard.
To bring back some guys that have experience, to Coach King's point, right, be able to figure out the tempo of the game, and as you go deeper, you're obviously playing in bigger venues, higher stakes, more NIL money now, right? Think about that. So
True.
Are you getting that? Are you setting yourself up for a potential financial gain with this too, right?
No, exactly. Because if you go all in 1 year with your talent, then there's going to be no one to train the talent the next year, obviously.
Yeah, you get an Instagram deal or something, right? Like Joe Desauer. What do you got, Coach?
Yeah, this is maybe not a direct answer, but one team we haven't mentioned yet, Loyola Chicago, and obviously Sister Jean.
Sister Jean.
And, again, I picked my bracket with my heart, so of course I'm going to go Loyola Chicago there. I will say, though, that they went to the Sweet 16 last year. They beat top-seeded Illinois in the second round last year in that 1 versus 8 matchup. I love Loyola, in my heart, but I will caution people, if you're truly trying to win your bracket, win your league with your friends, with your colleagues, I would probably go Ohio State there, because Loyola Chicago, they lost a big part of their team. New head coach Valentine has done a really nice job, but their big man from last year is gone. They're a little bit limited in the backcourt. I would caution, if you're really trying to win and doing your bracket with your head, I would caution having Loyola Chicago going, winning in the first round.
The Sister Jean effect, you got to avoid it.
Yeah, yep. I mean, maybe there's going to be some divine intervention, but the Buckeyes, they run a really good system. They have a nice team. I know that as a 7 seed, I thought they'd be actually a little lower, or actually a little bit better.
Yeah.
I think that's going to be a tough first round matchup for Loyola.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see for sure.
Well, Villanova's going to win that one anyways, right? Once they get to that second round.
Yeah, Villanova's just
like
solid.
Villanova?
They're solid. They're going to get after it defensively. They're so efficient offensively. They don't turn the ball over. Colin Gillespie is one of the best guards in the country. They have a couple local kids as well, so that's another cool reason to watch them.
That Villanova-Tennessee potential Sweet 16 seems to be. Is that going to be the best matchup?
That's going to be a great game.
Baylor, UCLA, maybe?
Baylor, UCLA will be a good one too.
Maybe all of them,
But I like that Tennessee-Villanova game. I hope we get there.
One game I actually am realizing, we obviously talked about UCLA, but UCLA versus St. Mary's is going to be fun to watch, because St. Mary's is a really good defensive team.
Yeah, they play in Gonzaga's league. They're in the WCC. St. Mary's has always recruited really well internationally, particularly with Australian players. So guys like Patty Mills, who was on those Spurs teams that beat the Miami Heat, he's a St. Mary's guy, an Australian kid. Matthew Dellavedova, who was on the Cleveland team that won the championship with LeBron a few years back, he played for St. Mary's. They recruit really well internationally, and they play a really fun style. They beat Gonzaga this year. They have the ability to beat any team in this tournament. I like St. Mary's going into that second round. I think UCLA will be a tough matchup, but it'll be a really fun one to watch.
Yeah, I think whatever team wins between St. Mary's and UCLA, you can put them in the Final 8 at least. I think they're not losing at the Sweet 16.
Yeah, I agree. Keep an eye out on North Carolina, though. I'm telling you that.
That's true. That could be a bracket buster.
Some matchups now that we're getting into this, huh?
Agreed.
I'm excited.
There's going to be some great matchups. There's going to be a great month of basketball. It's going to be awesome to see. And then, so I finally filled out all the mascots.
Oh, baby.
Okay, so Jayhawks is Kansas, obviously, versus I'm going to try getting this right first try, Texas A&M in Corpus Christi. Corpus Christi, okay, in Corpus Christi. They're the Islanders. So it's really whether you think a bird is going to beat just a person who lives on an island. So, honestly,
it's an interesting matchup.
What's disappointing, I think Kansas is going to win this matchup. I can't take it.
You like a bird?
Can't take the Jayhawks over to the full man. I gotta
suppose
put.
they have the upper hand, right?
That's true. They can fly and peck around. Islanders don't really have weapons either. It's only like spears.
Well, we have a
and stuff.
local bird expert here on the
Whoa.
show, so I don't
That true, Mr. King?
No, it is not.
I thought he birdwatched when he's not coaching hoops or correcting papers. But
I'm trying to think of a bird, like a violent, aggressive bird that could maybe defeat an Islander and a.
Yeah, it's technically a hawk. So yeah, Jay Hawks.
hawk.
Yeah.
Some like
Penguins
some
are
birds.
mean.
Penguins Army. Maybe a mad enough owl could swoop down, get a little bit nocturnal stuff going.
They have that like fission. They can almost turn.
They're all
away.
turns, right?
That 360-degree turn.
God, that's a tough one.
Yeah, I obviously think Kansas is gonna win that, but if we're going by the fight way, I do have to put the Islanders. So Corporal Crispy,
Okay.
do not, or Texas A&M Corpus Christi, do not let me down. Please beat Kansas so I can actually get this one right.
The next one.
Next one is going to be San Diego State Aztecs versus the Creighton Blue Jays. Aztecs are winning that. I'd say Blue Jays are kind of just birds that sing songs.
I know it's too bad because Creighton, they went to the Big East final. They played Villanova. They played them really well. If you caught the PC game on Friday night, they absolutely obliterated Providence.
I know.
They have some guys who can really light it up offensively.
And a 9 seed at that?
Yeah. Yeah, like I
a
said,
4 seed?
I know, like we said about the selection committee kind of looking at those conference tournaments, really no more than just a regular league game.
Just a money grab.
Yeah, they look at the totality of work, which I get. But yeah, I do think the Aztec, got to go with them, right?
Yeah, you have to. So far, Coach King, everything that you've said so far has made me realize I might have made a big mistake going with the mascots. For this
we
one.
all have.
Yeah, it's okay.
Just with brackets in general.
You'd be
Yeah, that's
surprised.
true.
You'd be surprised, Joe. It's gonna work out in your favor. Trust me. That's the way it always works.
Yeah, that's true. It might just end up being random. So, yeah, after the Aztecs beating the Blue Jays, that's San Diego State over Creighton. We got the Iowa Hawks versus the Richmond Spiders. Could not be a more perfect matchup. The Hawk is eating the Spider. Gotta go with Iowa for that one.
Agreed.
Then we're moving on from that one. We got the PC Friars versus South Dakota State Jackrabbits.
Oh boy.
Matters how mad you think a jackrabbit can get, though, is one thing. They do have the horns, but I don't think a jackrabbit's taking a human. He's a friar, too, so he's got some training.
And he's got some, divine
Yeah,
intervention
exactly.
there
He's
to
got
come
someone
out to his
watching over
side.
him.
Probably
Yeah.
go with Friars.
Absolutely.
And being local,
Yeah, we gotta give
you
it to
don't want to
PC.
cross.
So even in the mascot version of this tally, we are going to give PC on to the next round. We got to give Providence College at least that.
Yep.
Go
agreed.
Friars. Good luck,
Yeah,
Coach
go
Cooley.
Friars. 100%. And then following that was LSU Tigers versus the Iowa State Cardinals. Tiger obviously beats a Cardinal. Pretty simple there. Then Wisconsin Badgers versus Colgate Raiders.
Ooh.
Badgers, if you've seen Badgers in videos, they get pretty mad. The video of a honey badger fighting a snake, just to not give up at all. He really didn't care. I'll be honest, Raiders just they have weapons, obviously. They're raiding and pillaging villages. That's what they ought to do. I think I got to give that to the Raiders. Yet another upset, a 14 seed on a 3 seed this time. Can hope one of these comes through at least. Would be pretty cool.
That would totally shock me. Colgate had a great run in the Patriot League this year. They have a very talented team.
They seem like they're always there, right?
They've won that league a couple years in a row now. You're right.
And Patriot League, winning the Patriot League, automatic bid?
Correct. Yep. Every league has an automatic bid for their conference champion.
Interesting.
Yep.
Yeah, Colgate I remember shocking me last year because I didn't really pay much attention to them. I didn't think they're that good, obviously. But then they kept moving on the tournament, ruined my bracket completely. I just ended up having to respect Colgate at the end for actually being a good team. So then moving on from Colgate, USC Trojans versus the Miami Ibis. So I think the Trojans.
Miami Hurricanes? What is this one?
You know,
is that regular Miami?
I could have sworn it was Hurricanes. Yeah, it is Hurricanes, right? When I looked it up, and some Ibis came up for some reason. I have no clue why.
You probably got Miami Corpus Christi.
No, that's true. I probably did.
Some online campus.
Miami of Ohio.
Yeah, could be.
Yeah. You know what it is? Sebastian the Ibis is the one who represents the Hurricanes because they don't have the Hurricanes
Makes
come out.
sense.
I was wondering why it kept
Total
showing
sense.
me. Showing me Sebastian the Ibis. So, not really sure how someone would fight a Hurricane. I realized that would just be obvious.
I
But
fought a few in my day. Yeah.
Let's face it, too. I mean, the Trojans, great warriors, but they lost to the Greeks. I mean,
yeah, that's true.
We're not gonna, challenge Mr. King on that one.
Yeah, no,
I've seen his tests.
might have to give that one to Miami. Honestly, I was thinking USC at first, but it's a full-blown Hurricane. A Hurricane's not
I
really.
like this side of the bracket. The side of the bracket's fun.
Yeah, this side is actually pretty fun to do. And then the last one was the Auburn Tigers versus the Jacksonville State Gamecocks, and I think the Tigers win that one yet again because it's just a bird and a tiger.
Yeah. Just a bird. None of the birds are winning, right?
No, exactly. If you name your team after a bird, you can't really win this side of the bracket.
Seagulls, I might give
Yeah, Seagulls are aggressive. They're mean.
Yeah.
And looking a little more basketball-wise at Auburn, we haven't really mentioned them. They've lost a few games in a row in the last month here, especially away from home. But if you're looking for some players who are going to be potential NBA All-Stars in a few years, Auburn does have Jabari Smith. He is a freshman who NBA scouts compared to Kevin Durant. He's about 6'10". He can stroke the basketball. He's got great handle. He's very skilled, very polished offensively for an 18-year-old kid. Jabari Smith is an incredible player, and he'll be fun to watch this tournament.
Yeah, I've been watching Jabari Smith lately, honestly. We can do a little segment right here, actually. Top 3 picks of the draft. Who do you think the main contestants for those 3 picks are going to be? Like, if you have to pick 3 players, just 1, 2, and 3. Personally, I think top 3 so far, these are the obvious ones, though. It's Paulo Banchero, Jabari Smith, and Chet Holmgren.
That'd be my 3-2, Joe. And obviously, you never know when the ping pong balls, the way they bounce, the needs of certain teams. Maybe if they need a guard, they'll go in a different direction. But I agree, in terms of NBA potential, with their size, with their athleticism, those would be my 3 picks, too.
Yeah, the big thing for all these players, they're all massive players, all at least 6'10". Even Paulo Banchero, he's 6'10". The entirety of this draft is going to be long players who are just so skilled. They're going to be changing how big men are in the NBA.
Joe Dez, I think we're coming up on the Joe Dez hour.
Yeah, I think that this has been a great time.
We close out?
Yeah, I will post all of our brackets on the Joe Dez Instagram. Make sure you check that out if you want to see me, Coach King, and Mr. O'Brien's brackets, who we think is going to win the entire thing. We'll save it for that post. Make sure you check out one second. I might just stopped recording the audio right when I did the outro. Wait 1 second.
Is that phone still going?
Yeah, the phone's still going, luckily. Yeah, okay, I cut out the audio right when I was doing this, so we're good. Okay. Yeah, wait, what? Didn't even cut out the audio. Wow, okay, opened the wrong application. Audio has been going this entire time. I was terrified for a second, Mr. O'Brien. I did not want to admit to you guys, thought we lost about half the project.
Oh, no.
It said 37 minutes.
Do this again.
Yeah, we would
pleasure, though, to
have.
do this
Okay.
Take 2.
Well, we're all good. Audio has been saved, has been recording this entire time. This has been episode 9 of the Joe Dez Hour. Make sure you check out the Joe Dez on Instagram to see all of our brackets, Joe Dez's, Coach King's, and Mr. O'Brien's. This was episode 9, the March Madness special. Check out next time. We should have Cam Fourier and Lydia Mordarski from the Bishopian girls basketball team joining us. Might end up being Dante Bruschi and Case Mankins for the next interview. We're going to see. Obviously going to find out how they get scheduled in the end. But make sure you check out the next episode to see. This has been the Joe Dez Hour. Thank you for coming on, Mr. O'Brien and Coach King.